1, 2, check. 1, 2.
And then it goes back. Right? Then it goes back here. Yep. And then it goes to the second one. Right? This space is very I'm like trying so hard to talk to you. Like, that doesn't help. That's good. There you go. Okay. I'm just trying. I don't know. The other thing I want to do is feeling my piano's getting much better. I'm accompanying for someone this week, which I'm excited about because I've never done that. I've never really played. I mean, I play for like my kids for their lessons, but I like if they're performing, I always like to ask the front to play. But I've never actually played with someone on stage before, so I'm excited that I'm actually like feeling like I'm good enough to like. And the only way that you push it, you just got to do it. And it's like definitely a piece that's like below my abilities. So that this way, even if I mess up, like it's gonna be fine. And it's like not. It's not like I'm worried about technique or anything. I'm just going for it. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just. Someone asked me if I would do it. I was like, sure. Yes.
Check, 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 check.
Linda, if Dawn was in the front row, she'd be giving us the.
Okay. So
Before it's heavy, Michelle is
Michelle's
our reader.
first,
Yeah.
so I'm not really like front and center. okay. I'm not like. How are you? If you're okay.
Shabbat Shalom and welcome everybody. We're going to turn to page 140. Welcome tonight to Sisterhood Shabbat. Each year, whenever we have a Sisterhood Shabbat, it's just a wonderful, lovely service. We're beginning on page 140, and right before Tzadik Katamar is sung, we're going to invite forward Michelle Rosen, President of Sisterhood, to read the translation. You'll find this towards the bottom of page 140.
The righteous bloom like a date palm. They thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. Planted in the house of Adonai, they flourish in the courts of our God. In old age, they still produce fruit. They are full of sap and freshness, attesting that Adonai is upright, my rock, in whom there is no wrong.
And Tzadik Katamar will be found page 140.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, and again, welcome. We turn to page 125. Sharon Goldman is our reader.
Where has this week vanished? Is it lost forever? Will I ever recover anything from it? The joy of life, the unexpected victory, the realized hope, the task accomplished. Will I ever be able to banish the memory of pain, the sting of defeat, the heaviness of boredom? On this day, let me keep for a while what must drift away. On this day, let me be free of the burdens that must return. On this day, Shabbat, abide. Help me to withdraw for a while from the flight of time, contain the retreat of the hours and the days from the grasp of frantic life. Let me learn to pause, if only for this day. Let me find peace on this day. Let me enter into a quiet world this day. On this day, Shabbat, abide.
Thank you. On page 120 will be Hadlakat HaNerot, kindling the lights of Shabbat. Page 120. Dawn Tendler leads us in candlelight.
As the Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle
Please join with me.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen. Thank you. We turn to page 138 for Lechado D. We'll be singing on pages 138 and 139, the first, the second, and the ninth verses of Lechado D.
And I'm going to make you all part of the choir tonight.
Lechado di ligrat kala Panei Shabbat nikabela 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 Mor v'zachor b'dibur echad Hishmi'anu el hamiuchad Adonai echad v'shemo echad L'shem tiferet v'litki la Lechado di ligrat kala Panei Shabbat nikabela Lechado di ligrat kala Panei Shabbat nikabela Shabbat lechu v'nelcha Ki hi mekor habracha Merosh mikedem nesucha Sof ma'aseh b'machshava tzechila Lechado di ligrat kala Panei Shabbat nikabela Lechado di ligrat kala Panei Shabbat nikabela Oy v'shalom ateret bala Gam b'simcha uv'sohola Toch emunei am segula Lechado di ligrat kala Panei Shabbat nikabela Lechado di ligrat kala Panei Shabbat nikabela Lechado di We now turn in our prayer books to page 145. Peggy Klein is our reader.
Teach me, O God, a blessing, a prayer on the mystery of a withered leaf, on ripened fruit so fair, on the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, to despair. Teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise, as each morning and night you renew your days. Lest my day be today as the one before, lest routine set my ways.
We now turn to page 146. For those who are able, we invite you to rise for the Baruch.
Baruch hu et Adonai, hamevorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamevorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai, hamevorach leolam vaed.
We turn to page 148. I read at the bottom of the page, "Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ariv ha'ravim." And on the bottom of page 150, "Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael." Page 152. Shema Yisrael Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Vaed. Please be seated. Page 154. We join together with Linda in the Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levacha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu ha'devarim ha'eleh asher Anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta b'ham b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'leftecha v'derech uv'shokbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha v'chayu tafot beinecha uktavtam al mizgov beitecha uvisharecha leman tiskeru v'titem et kol mitzvotai v'titem kadoshim le'Elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihyot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem. We turn to page 157. Joyce Hoser leads us in responsive reading.
In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai. There is one God in heaven and on earth. The high heavens declare your glory, and may earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way.
Inspired by prophets and instructed by
Sages, and time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Through our fallings are many and our faults are great. It has been our glory to bear witness to our God and keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to the work of the day, and the nations will be one at peace. And then shall rejoice as Israel did, and sing on the shores of the sea.
Michamocha will be found on page 158. Page 160, Uthros Elena will be found towards the bottom of the first Hebrew paragraph. And we invite forward Rebecca Rumson.
Baruch atah Adonai hapuei sukkot shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim Shalom. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim Shalom. Baruch atah Adonai hapuei sukkot shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael.
Thank you. On page 162, Yismechu is the second Hebrew paragraph down on the page. Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'Korei, Olei Shabbat. Yismechu b'malachutecha, Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'Korei, Olei Shabbat. We now turn to page 165. And on page 165, Linda is our reader.
Pray as if everything depended on God. Act as if everything depended on you.
Right across the page, 164, those who are able, we rise for the tefillah. We'll be chanting the prayers on the right-hand pages, beginning on, starting on page 164, continuing to page 170. Adonai sifatei tiftach ufi agit techilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu ve'imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'kanei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdevot ve'imachot, U'mevi Gula livnei b'neihem, Lema'an Shemo be'achava, Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magin, Baruch atah Adonai, Tzara. Ata gibor leolam Adonai, Mechayecha kol atarav lechoshia, Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechayecha kol berachamim rabim, Zehomech noflim v'rafecha holim, Umatir asurim, Umechayim emunato, L'Yisrael afar, Mihamocha b'gvurot, Umidom melach, Melech menit umechayim, Umatzmiach Yeshua, Emanata l'chayot ha'akol, Vayirchata Adonai, Mechayeh ha'akol. We now turn to page 171, and we invite forward Ellie Saperstein as our reader.
Days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence, like lightning, illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see, wherever we gaze, that the bush burns unconsumed, and we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it.
Thank you. Please be seated. The inscription on our sukkah outdoors, if you look up over the sukkah, it says, Ufros aleinu sukkot shlomecha, spread over us your canopy of peace. That was part of the prayer sung so beautifully earlier by Rebecca. Our upcoming prayer is our prayer of peace. Religious consciousness is linked with a power beyond ourselves in the hope of fostering shalom from realm to realm. To be sure, shalom is as fragile as it is precious. That's been underscored in recent days in northern Syria. The events of the past 2 weeks highlights how sustaining life and human dignity is a moral responsibility. For well we know how horror and atrocity are the handmaidens of indifference. On this Shabbat and every time we gather, we speak to God and we remind ourselves of the obligation to help lessen the pain of others and to promote peace and well-being. Ufros aleinu sukkot shlomecha, may that canopy of peace be sufficiently wide enough that all might dwell underneath it. Our prayer, Shalom Rav, for abundant peace, page 178.
And please all join with me. Beautiful, beautiful song.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. tasim leolam. Shalom Israel tasim leolam. Beinecha levadeh et amecha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rab Yisrael tasim leolam. Shalom Rab Yisrael tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam.
Libi
for the waving of the etrog and lulav, we invite forward Ruthie Holt. Ruthie? It says in the book of Leviticus, you shall dwell in booths for 7 days, that your generations may know that I made the children of Israel to dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. The sukkah, our modern understanding, full, vulnerable, a place for welcoming guests and connecting with people, both those who are in our lives and those ancestors whom we remember with love. It is an embodied metaphor for human life. Like a sukkah, each life is temporary, each life is beautiful, each life is vulnerable. Each life is enriched by the presence of our loved ones, both living and imagined. Into every life a little rain must fall, but we have the opportunity to greet even that rain with joy. We have 4 species. Rabbi Eliezer is recorded as saying, these 4 species come only to obtain the favor of God, to give water. And just as without water it would be impossible to have these 4 species, so too it is impossible for the world to exist without water. You shall take the product of hadar trees, branches of the palm trees, boughs of the leafy trees, and willows of the brook, and you shall rejoice before Adonai your God 7 days. And so let's see, right hand and left hand, and for the blessing like so, and then that will be turned the other way, holding together. And Ruthie, we're going to have you face towards east, and the baracha, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu netilat lulav. And first time everybody is seeing it this year. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shechianu Iyanu Lazman Hazeh. Okay, and holding together. And 3 times east and south, west behind you, and north, and up, and then lowered down. Thank you. Yeah. After services, if you'd like to smell our etrog, especially fragrant this year. So we thank Abby and our religious school for organizing. On the subject of peace and dwelling and our hope for Sukkot, we also remember those who face Sukkot and don't experience joy, but rather experience fear and trepidation. This Shabbat falls during our month, during the month related to remembering domestic violence. And we have a special reading, which I believe Michelle is distributing. And I'll ask that we read this reading together. We bless the divine presence, whose wings shelter us with peace. Redeemer of Israel, who brought us out of Egypt. On this festival of Sukkot, our thoughts turn to those who dwell in fear and danger in their own homes. With compassion and an outstretched arm, bring them forth into freedom and shelter them in your sukkah of peace. Amen. Each Shabbat, we pray on behalf of dear ones within and beyond our congregational family. We articulate the hope that they might know comfort and support. I invite you now to raise your hand, and after I silently acknowledge you, please speak the names of those persons not on our prayer list for whom likewise we should pray this Shabbat. page 371.
Please let's all sing this together.
Many years ago, in 1996, when the internet was young and you paid for dial-up service, America Online went offline for 19 hours. It was, at that moment, a seeming business disaster. As technicians work to fix the crash, it was news all over America. Yet it also pointed out something new at the time, and in hindsight is obvious, that people had come to rely on the service. We needed our access to internet and email. In the aftermath to the savvy investor, the company was more valuable, not less. A new Pew Research Center study on religion in America highlights the challenges religious institutions experience, including our own. The survey revealed that 65% of Americans described themselves as Christian, down 12% from a decade ago. Meanwhile, those without a religious identity is now at 26%, up from 17% in 2009. Yet perhaps this is a type of "you've got mail," and maybe we're more valuable than we realize sort of moment. For Judaism's distinct message of conduct and community as paramount over belief, for Judaism's message of wrestling and questions at the center of religious consciousness, may be particularly suited for a segment of the now larger pool of unaffiliated persons. And Reform Judaism's embrace of equality and inclusion likewise can speak to a new generation. Yet any such transformation, engaging a new generation of searching souls with the lessons of Torah, won't just happen. It will be the result of sustained effort and, above all, of modeling and commitment and welcome. It will be the result of dedication and innovation, creativity and camaraderie. In other words, in order to come to pass, we'll need to pattern ourselves on sisterhood. Tonight, several of our sisters will offer a modern take on Ushpizin, the mystical custom of welcoming biblical ancestors into the sukkah, by sharing which Jewish women role models of theirs they wish to welcome into their sukkah, into our sukkah. In considering their thoughts and values, may part of our larger takeaway be how and to the next, and from dial-up through cellular to Wi-Fi, if not also deepen the lives of others drawn to or curious about Jewish wisdom. And our first reader, we invite forward Barbara Phillips. For our readers, the advantage of being up here is that for the tens, I won't say tens of thousands, but for the tens streaming us live,
I forgot.
you'll be better able to hear.
According to my research and rabbinic interpretation, the sukkah symbolizes clouds of glory, protection, divine presence, and love. Please remember those four things. I feel those things when I think of my Jewish heroine, my mother, Clara Judith Koik. She gloried and cavilled in her family and her work. She was the matriarch of our family, kept us busy with cousins clubs, sacred observances, reminders of our Jewish heritage, and holiday meals. Her secret recipe for rugula was a legend in our community. As a high school math teacher and the only one of 6 to graduate from college, she was so proud of her students because they always seemed to come out on top in the New York State Regents exams. She was a fierce protector of doing the right thing and speaking when she saw injustice. An early advocate of those with mental health issues, she received the Woman of the Year award for her efforts. We always felt the divine presence in our home every time she lit the Shabbat candles on Friday night, recited the prayers in the synagogue, and told us always that God was the ultimate judge of our character. In the synagogue, she served as a trustee and historian. Lastly, love she gave us was unconditional and intense. She cherished her grandchildren and children, who she fondly referred to as kanapesala, or cookie pie. In addition, no matter what mistakes we all made, the very first thing she would say is, "I love you," followed by a hug and a smile, and then, "Now tell me what you learned and what you might do differently next time." So it is fitting to say now, Mom, my Jewish heroine, please take my hand and join me in the sukkah. You are ever with me in spirit and sustenance. Love you more than tongue can tell.
There's a theme here. I first thought of somebody who's still alive, and I thought, maybe I'd rather do somebody who's no longer with us, as Michelle put it in the email inviting me to participate. I'm also have a mother who is my Jewish heroine. She was a Jew by choice, grew up in a WASP family, and converted to Judaism in 1949, shortly before marrying my dad. And it wasn't easy. Even that was challenging. The first rabbi she studied with for conversion didn't work out. She had to go out of town and study with another rabbi for her conversion. She persisted. And raising Jewish children was very important to her. At one point, she told me a story. I don't remember this happening, but she said, you got old enough to understand what conversion was, and you said to me, "You're not one of us." And instead of being hurt or offended, she thought, great, she has a Jewish identity. And she helped ensure that by, when we moved from Danbury, where there was an active synagogue, where my brother, was my brother old enough? Well, I went to religious school at the United Jewish Center in Danbury. Then when we moved to Westerly, Rhode Island, there was a little synagogue and very few Jewish families. And she got a religious school organized for the few of us. And I became a bat mitzvah. So she's my heroine, and thank you, Mom.
Sherry?
Well, I'm going to be completely different. I grew up in Wallingford, Connecticut, where we were one of 2 Jewish families. I was very, very proud of who I was, but it was really difficult to be Jewish there. And as a result, I often felt lost and not so accepted. As a teenager, I found myself searching for more Jewish connections. This led me to music, which is maybe why I love it here, where I began to idolize Barbra Streisand. Barbara had a very difficult childhood herself and has often described it as very painful. She lost her father at 15 months old, got no support from her mother, and was rejected by her peers. Everything she has ever accomplished came from perseverance, hope, and inner strength. Now imagine a young girl trying to find herself, blasting Barbra Streisand and singing on the top of my lungs, not very well, thinking about this Jewish girl who came from nothing, who is now this amazing person who's accomplished so much. I wanted to be that. And so I own every album and have seen all her movies, and it was even my wedding song. So when I was finally able to get to a concert in 2017, I spoke out loud, something I am sure no person has ever spoken before. I turned to my friend and I said, Barbra Streisand is how I got through my teenage years. And that is why I invite her into my sukkah, and she is my heroine.
Mrs. Lifshitz was my 3rd grade teacher. And I think she was the first Jewish woman I ever met. I came from a small Connecticut town where the majority of the residents were either Irish or Italian, and there were very few Jews. It might have been 2 families in the whole town. All I knew about Judaism was that Mrs. Lifshitz did not come to school for a few days in the fall because she celebrated some kind of holiday. We never talked about religion in the 3rd grade, and no one asked her why she didn't come to school on those days. But Mrs. Lifshitz had a special way about her. She never talked down to us, and she made each one of us feel that we were special. She always had time to listen to us. She really seemed to learn from us and care what we had to say, and she conversed with us, and I'm talking conversation. In those days, there was no special education, no classroom support, so it was Mrs. Lifshitz and the 25 students of various abilities. And I knew even then that some of those kids were very challenging, like Eddie Skinner, who did not manage to sit in a chair for more than 5 minutes at a time throughout the entire school year. Does anybody else know an Eddie Skinner? Eddie was animated, Eddie was energetic, Eddie was impulsive, and Eddie was entertaining. He could be very disruptive. He was really every teacher's nightmare. But Mrs. Lifshitz recognized the good in Eddie, made friends with him, and figured out early in the year how to channel that energy into something very productive. Somehow she knew when he was going to erupt. She just knew. And she would say, Eddie, wouldn't this be a good time to go and sharpen those pencils? And the disaster would be averted. That was a wonderful school year, filled with lessons about respect and kindness and decency that went far beyond the academic skills we learned. And when the teacher of the class is such a shining example of decency, students follow suit and treat each other with respect. I may not have learned any Jewish prayers or Hebrew songs from Mrs. Lifshitz. I may have not learned about Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, but in 3rd grade, I had a wonderful education in Jewish values. And at the end of the school year, I was promoted to the 4th grade. No big surprise. But in August, I was delighted to learn that Mrs. Lifshitz was also reassigned to teach my 4th grade class. I was truly blessed. I wish she could be at our sukkah. She's in my thoughts very often, and I became a teacher because of her influence.
Ronnie?
Thank you, Michelle, for this honor of being able to discuss my heroine. In thinking about who I would want to invite to the sukkah, I have been very fortunate to have known many strong, kind women who have been my heroines. If I could have one here with me tonight, it would be my best friend, Jan, who passed away 4 years ago. Jan had a light about her that radiated off her and was transmitted to all who she came in contact with. She was the most devoted, nurturing, and selfless daughter, friend, sister, mother, and wife. Though she was pained from a very young age by severe arthritis, she never complained. She continued to live and learn each day, fascinated by other cultures, and even learned how to speak Korean at age 60. She was also a wonderful painter and sculptress. When she became sick with cancer, she never complained. She still had the ability to make us all laugh and smile. She fought valiantly until the end. She was the most beautiful woman, both inside and out. Because of Jan's unwavering joy, kindness, and sense of humor, and depth of love and spirituality, she will always be my hero.
Suzanne?
Well, mine's a little different because I went back to Genesis for my heroine. And so I have chosen one of the matriarchs, Sarah. My former rabbi always chose the casting out of Ishmael to be the Rosh Hashanah reading. And I think it was then that I began to see some of the problems that I was having with it. And every year found a new way to slam Sarah. She was the nag, the hag, the jealous wife. And a few years later, after we had left that temple, that being one of the reasons, we belonged to the newly Jewish-formed Coalition for Jewish Life in Washington. At their monthly Torah sessions led by the student rabbi, I suggested that instead of bashing Sarah as the nag, jealous, wronged woman, you pick whatever misogynistic adjective you want, we can look upon her as God's agent. If you believe that God had a plan, then Sarah was part of it, and casting out of Ishmael led to the creation of the Muslims. The more I learned, I became more convinced that men had codified the text, and they made villains of women, starting with Eve. Remember, no one had a gun in the Garden of Eden. So Eve could not have held a gun to Adam's head to force him to eat that apple. But Eve has been presented as the temptress and blamed ever since. So I pick our first matriarch, Sarah, to stand for all the maligned women to join me and the other women in the sukkah. And I want to also add that because of this, and people who know me from Torah study know that I use the women's Torah, and I've also purchased 2 of them to give to my wonderful granddaughters on their 12th birthdays, so they can use it in preparation for their bat mitzvahs.
I'm good to know that the Sarah bashing was not a part of B'nai Israel. And,
I want to add one of the things when I first was coming here before I joined, and I noticed that we always remember the matriarchs. And in our other temple, I was the only one who added the matriarchs in the prayers. So that was one of the reasons I came here.
Traditionally with Ush Pazim, it is 7 who are invited in, 7 of course being a very special number. Our 7th speaker this evening is Sisterhood President Michelle.
Rabbi, I do have to tell you that I did give everybody 120 words. It was part of the email. Just don't want anyone to forget. And I truly struggled with this. I thought about all the emails I was getting back, asking questions, and I struggled. I did not plan on writing this, but I wanted to see what the struggle was. And it was amazing that there are so many people to write about. And you know, we all define heroines as different people with different characteristics, and we base them on different criteria. So as I was researching, the woman that I really wish I did have the opportunity to invite to our sukkah is Carrie Simon. I don't know if anybody knows who she is. I'm looking around and I'm saying, you don't. So Carrie Simon founded the National Federation of Temple Sisterhoods. Within the organization of the Union of American Hebrew Congregations. Now, the Federation transitioned to a name that you may be more familiar with, the Women of Reform Judaism. Under Simon's leadership, the Federation expanded the scope of women's social roles and offered new opportunities and rewarding experiences within the Reform movement for those women committed to Jewish and synagogue life. As president of the Federation, Simon established a National Committee on Religion, which organized religious schools, increased synagogue attendance, and collected and displayed Jewish ceremonial objects. It is through this committee that young men started receiving scholarships to attend rabbinical school. She also used her position to encourage the Union of American Hebrew Congregations to include more women on synagogue boards and to welcome intermarried couples into the temple and into its sisterhood. In her lifespan, she watched as the National Federation of Temple Sisterhoods grew from 5,000 women in 49 chapters to over 585 chapters throughout 9 countries and more than 100,000 women. With all that said, you must be wondering why I would want her to join us in our sukkah and what else I would want to know. And I am intrigued in knowing what she would think of WRJ today and whether or not she would feel that it's going through the mission that she started in being inclusive and including all women in everything Reform Judaism has to offer.
We thank all of our speakers, just lovely. We turn in our prayer books now to page 586 as we begin our concluding prayers with the Aleinu. We rise and we invite forward Sandy Gold and Margie Surmer to open our ark. Page 586, the Aleinu that we chant is the second paragraph down on the page. Aleinu l'shabea l'adon hakol Latet Gedula Leotzer Breshit Shelo Asanu Kageye Haratzot Velo Samanu Kamish Bechot Adama Shelo Samchel Kenu Kahem Vigor Aleinu Kechol Hamonam V'anachnu Korim Umishtachavim Umadim Lifnei Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bene'emar is on page 591. Bene'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo We turn to page 598. We now call to mind our own beloved dead. I ask that those in mourning or remembering the anniversary of the death of a loved one and who have trekked to the sanctuary during Shiva or Shloshim or for Yartzeit, should you be able, please rise when their name is mentioned. During Shloshim, we remember Devorah Biznov, cousin of Sharon Goldman. This Shabbat, we remember the Yartzeits, the anniversaries of the deaths of Lillian G. Berland, Donald Cohan, Meyer B. Erlanger Jr., Harry Goldberg, Ida Goldberg, Alvin Krakow, Barbara McChesney, Nettie Pashkus, Sidney L. Silverman, Evelyn Singer, Michael Sochin, Dolly Golda Stagno, Nancy Stammelman, Julia Stein, Rosika Stern, Max R. Trorig, Marjorie Blick Walzer, and Morris Weinstein. If there are additional names for Kaddish this Shabbat, please feel free to rise and say their names now. A practice within our congregation is to further consider these people. If you're comfortable so doing, we now invite you to share with this minyan a brief reflection or reference about a dear one on our Kaddish list.
If you'll indulge me, Dolly Stagno was my aunt, and Ida Goldberg was my grandmother, and they were my heroines. Dolly came at the age of 16 from Poland, alone. She left her parents behind, never to see them again. She did have relatives here, and her brother, her father, was here. She left on the last boat from England before the war broke out in 1945. And again, coming alone at 16 and making a life, she had a very hard life. She worked scrubbing floors as a teenager to make her money because the relatives here weren't supporting her. And she finished high school and went on to secretarial school, and at one point worked 3 jobs in a difficult marriage. And we were very close, and she always had time for me. And she died on, this is her Yortzeit, which is October 18th. My grandmother, Ida Goldberg, also died on October 18th, on her birthday. She was 81.
Each Shabbat, we also mention 6 names amongst the 6 million murdered in the Holocaust, the Shoah. We now remember Fanny Chaifetz, Sarah Chaifetz, Zavali Chaifetz, Max Lufer, Ava Stein, and Paul Stein. In remembrance and solidarity, and on behalf of those for whom there is no one but us to say Kaddish, we now invite all present to rise if you are able. On page 598 is the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divra chirute v'amlich malchute. B'chaye echon uvyom echon uvechaye d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kari v'imru amin. Yehei shemei Rabbah mavarach le'olam olamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kodesha b'richu. La'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata damiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromad hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zechronam levarcha, may their memories be for blessing, and let us say amen. Please be seated. Typically on the Shabbat of Sukkot, the book of Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, is read. A beautiful song based upon Ecclesiastes, familiar to us, is on page 664. Turn, turn, turn. Everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to build up, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together. Everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven. A time of love, a time to hate, a time of war, a time of peace, a time you may embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. Everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to gain, a time to lose, a time to rest, a time to sow, a time to love, a time to hate, a time for peace. I swear it's not too late. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, return, and a time for every purpose under.
Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. I'd like to thank Rabbi Linda, of course, for leading our service, and to Rachel and Rebecca and the choir for their lovely voices, and, of course, members of the Sisterhood for their lovely stories and tributes. For those who may not know me, my name is Stephen Reps. I wear, I guess, two kippot here. At B'nai Israel as one of the VPs of the Board of Trustees and as the president of the LLC. Any good news tonight? Yeah, Sharon.
I have a birthday this week and
Excellent. Any more birthdays, anniversaries?
But Ronnie and Gil and I ate out in the sukkah tonight. We had pizza and soup, and next year we're going to make it a big event, and everybody's going to eat this.
Okay, good. Yes. Sorry, didn't mean to annoy you back there. Okay, Saturday the 19th, 10 a.m. Torah study, and on the 20th, as usual, 9:30 BIRS, B'nai Israel Religious School, and 11:15. Family-friendly Simchat Torah service and new student consecration. All are welcome. On Monday the 21st, 10 a.m. Simchat Torah service and Yizkor. On Tuesday the 22nd, 4:15 is B'nai Israel Religious School. On the 25th, Friday, as usual, 7:30 p.m., Erev Shabbat services. Upcoming events. Introduction to Judaism with Rabbi Eric starts on October 27th. Tonight's Oneg is sponsored by our sisterhood. Shabbat Shalom.
And tomorrow there is a benefit concert for the Mitzvah Garden. Jam Sandwich will be performing at 4 o'clock for...
Here.
Right here, in this space, for children of all ages. So I hope some of you can make it.
So that's tomorrow here, Jam Sandwich, 4 p.m.
And it will be streamed.
One other note about next week's service. Next week is the first anniversary of the attack on Pittsburgh, on the synagogue at the Tree of Life Synagogue, and we'll be commemorating that here next Friday night. We turn to page 123 for Kiddush and Motzi. We invite forward Peggy Klein and Heather Sipley for our Kiddush and Motzi this evening. Peggy? And we join together with Peggy in Kiddush, and then with Heather in our Motzi.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzav banu, v'shabbat kodsho, be'ahava uvratzon, ihilanu, zikaron l'maaseh bereshit, ki hu yom tehillah, L'mikraye kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim, ki banu b'charta, v'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, be'ahava uvratzon, hinchaltanu
Elohim.